Chapter 61 Summons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Jianqiu looked at Fu Lingxue and smiled slightly. You're here. He naturally knew why Fu Lingxue could appear behind Han Ani silently. This was the same as how he could suddenly appear on the head of the blood python. The reason is that the flash escape talisman is used. In fact, even if Fu Lingxue didn't appear, Chu Jianqiu still had a way to kill Han Ani, but the price would be a bit higher. Chu Jianqiu didn't want to use that method as a last resort. Even when he was dealing with the blood python just now, none of them used that method. Fu Lingxue looked at Han Ani's headless corpse, her face turned pale, her whole body was shaking, and finally she couldn't help it and vomited out with a wow sound. This was the first time in her life that she had killed someone, and she had cut off the other person's head with one sword. The powerful impact of this scene made her unbearable. Fu Lingxue vomited for a while before barely recovering, and ran over to help Chu Jianqiu bandage his wound. Chu Jianqiu waved her hand, indicating that she was fine, and asked her to help others. With the power of his supreme martial body, as long as the energy and blood are restored, these wounds will heal naturally, and there is no need to use additional healing pills. Chu Jianqiu ran the Chaos Heavenly Emperor technique, and the rolling spiritual energy poured into his body crazily, stimulating the regeneration ability of the blood, and the large amount of consumed energy and blood slowly recovered. Half an hour later, the wounds on Chu Jianqiu's body had completely healed. Except for the loss of qi that had not yet recovered, he had no other serious problems at this time. However, if the true energy in his body is to be fully restored, if he only absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he will not be able to return to its full strength in less than 3 or 4 days. This fierce battle almost depleted the vast amount of Xinqi in his body. The reserves of true energy in his body are astonishing, but it is not easy to recover after consumption. When Wan Xiuying saw Fulingsu again, her eyes were filled with complicated expressions. She felt ashamed when she thought that she had thought of alienating Fulingsu because Fulingsu followed Chu Jianqiu's words and stayed on the mountainside. When Wan Xiuying asked Fulingsu why she appeared here, Fulingsu briefly explained. Originally, Chu Jianqiu told her to stay where she was, not to go further up the mountain, and to run away immediately if she saw the situation was not going well. But when she saw the dust and the noise on the mountain, she felt uneasy and secretly walked up the mountain. When she arrived here, the blood python had been killed by Chu Jianqiu, and she happened to see the scene where Han Ani was about to kill Chu Jianqiu. In desperation, Fu Lingxue used the escape talisman without hesitation, came behind Han Ani in an instant, and killed him with a sword. Her mind went blank at the time. She just thought that Han Ani could not hurt Chu Jianqiu, and she didn't think much at all. Now that he calmed down, he realized that he actually killed a fellow disciple of Xianjian's sect. Even though she was helping Wan Xiuying bandage her wounds, she was still a little uneasy. Wan Xiuying told what had just happened. Han Ani was completely innocent of her death, so she told Fu Lingxue not to worry about it at all, and Fu Lingxue felt at ease. Under the care of Fulingsu, everyone took the healing elixir and bandaged their wounds with the healing elixir. After resting for a while, they got up with their heavy injuries. Chu Jianqiu frowned slightly as he looked at the huge blood python corpse in front of him. If he was the only one present, it would be easy for him to handle the huge blood python corpse and just stuff it into the Chaos Supreme Tower. With the huge space inside the Chaos Supreme Tower, this blood python can be accommodated. The body was nothing at all, but in full view of the public, he obviously couldn't do this. He couldn't expose the secrets of the Chaos Supreme Tower at all, otherwise, it would cause him a fatal disaster at any time, unless he killed all the people present. However, Chu Jianqiu is not a murderous demon, and he will not kill people for no reason just for a mere blood python corpse, even though this blood python corpse is full of treasures and is of great value. A half-transformed corpse of a great demon is enough to cause a bloody storm. If Chu Jianqiu were one of those ruthless people, I am afraid that no one present would survive. Junior brother Chu, how should we dispose of the body of this blood python? Wan Xiuying looked at Chu Jianqiu and asked. The yunzhou she drove over this time was only a small yunzhou, which could only carry more than 10 people, and could not accommodate this blood python at all. Chu Jianqiu pondered for a while, then took out a token from his arms, input his true energy into it, and activated the runes inside. The surface of the token immediately sparked a strong golden light, and a mysterious wave spread out. everyone was shocked when they saw Chu Jianqiu taking out the token, personal token. This is a token that can only be owned by direct disciples on the 7 peaks of Shenzhen. Could it be that Chu Jianqiu is a direct disciple on each peak? Xianxia's face turned even paler after seeing the token. This loser whom she kept scolding was actually a direct disciple of the Shenzhen sect. Xianxia's heart felt like a heavy blow, and he felt that his whole life was dark. When Xiyang saw the token, she was surprised, but immediately felt relieved. Chu Jianqiu showed such an amazing talent, and it was only reasonable for him to be a direct disciple. On the day when Chu Jianqiu first entered the school half a year ago, she saw Xiyang pulling Chu Jianqiu away. She only knew that Chu Jianqiu and Xiyang were related, and did not pass Chu Jianqiu on personally. Disciple thinks above, because Chu Jianqiu's cultivation level was low among his peers at that time, he did not appear to be a person with outstanding talent at first glance. If the talent is astonishing, at this age, it is far from possible that he only has the cultivation level of the 9th level of the body refining realm. How could such a mediocre person be accepted as a direct disciple of the Shenzhen sect, even if he had any relationship with the Xiyang family, because this was the rule of the Shenzhen sect? Fu Lingxue and Si Fengkai were not surprised at all when they saw this token, because they already knew Chu Jianqiu's identity half a year ago, but they never publicized it. Half an hour later, a huge cloud boat appeared above Crouching Tiger Mountain. Junior brother, why are you calling senior sister here in such a hurry? A laughter like a silver bell rang above Crouching Tiger Mountain, and a beautiful girl wearing a floral dress jumped out of the cloud boat. It was not Xiyang. Who is Bamboo? Xiyang originally jumped off the Yunzhou with a smile on his face, but when he saw the mess on Crouching Tiger Mountain, his expression changed immediately. Judging from the degree of destruction of the forest in front of us, this is at least the destructive power of a warrior at the 7th level of the true Qi realm, and may even be a warrior at the 8th level of the true Qi realm. Wouldn't it be dangerous if the junior brother was in the middle of such a strong fight? Junior brother, where are you? Xiyang's figure flew quickly, his tone was full of worry, and he no longer had the slightest trace of ease and calmness before. Senior sister Xiyang, I'm here. Chu Jianqiu shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's eyes were dazzled, and a beautiful girl wearing a floral dress appeared in front of them. Chapter 62 Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiyang felt relieved when she saw that although Chu Jianqiu was in rags, he was not seriously injured. She was really afraid that this junior fellow student who had just started training for half a year would disappear like this. What are you doing? Xiyang said angrily. She received a summons from Chu Jianqiu and only said that she was asked to help bring a larger Yunzhou over, without further explanation. Although Xiyang was a little strange and didn't know what Chu Jianqiu wanted such a huge Yunzhou for, he did not refuse. This is the first thing this junior brother has asked her for since he started, but it is very rare. But when she came here and saw this messy scene, she was really shocked. She thought Chu Jianqiu had encountered 2 strong men at the 7th or 8th level of the true Qi realm fighting each other. Chu Jianqiu pointed to the body of the blood python and said with a smile, I alerted senior sister because I wanted senior sister to help deal with this thing. Only then did Xiyang notice the huge blood python corpse on the ground. His expression suddenly changed and he transformed into a big monster. Even a monster of this level would be a bit difficult for her to deal with. How could he die here? Then he saw the corpses in the field, combined with the embarrassed appearance of Chu Jianqiu and others, and his expression suddenly became solemn. What on earth is going on? Xiyang looked into Chu Jianqiu's eyes and asked seriously. Chu Jianqiu briefly explained the matter. He summoned Xiyang and asked her to come over. Firstly, he asked her to help deal with the blood python. Given how precious this blood python corpse is, if they, the weak outer disciples, transport it back, they may not attract covetous attention. Secondly, a lot of disciples died this time, especially Han Ani died at the hands of her own people. This matter is not a trivial matter. Han Ani's uncle Han Feijia is an elder of the outer sect. If he finds out about this matter, he will definitely do something bad. but if Zhuqiu Lianzhu intervenes, even if Han Feijie hates them in his heart and is unwilling to do anything, he will not dare to do anything wrong. Chu Jianqiu was not afraid of Han Feijie. With his status, Han Feijie was not qualified to deal with him. He was just saving Wan Xiuying and others unnecessary trouble. The more Zhuqiu Lianzhu listened, the more frightened he became. Looking at Chu Jianqiu, his eyes were full of disbelief. How dare a warrior of the first level of the true Qi realm actually fight against a great monster in disguise? And he actually defeated him. After Zhuqiu Lianzhu listened to Chu Jianqiu's story, he suddenly stretched out his slender hands and grabbed Chu Jianqiu's ears. He gritted his teeth and said, "If you encounter a great demon in disguise, if you don't run away quickly, you won't be able to run away without knowing whether to live or die. Go up and fight. Do you want me to be a senior sister after just 2 days?" As he spoke, he pulled Chu Jianqiu's ears hard twice. "It hurts, senior sister, please let go. I won't dare to do it next time." Chu Jianqiu quickly begged for mercy. It wasn't that the pain was unbearable, but it was really embarrassing for Zhuqiu Lianzhu to touch him like no one else. If Zhuqiu Lianzhu doesn't give up and beg for mercy, there's no telling what he might do with Zhuqiu Lianzhu's temperament. Regarding this scene, except for Si Fengkai, who was envious and jealous in his heart, everyone else was watching the scene with their eyes and nose, and turned a blind eye to what happened in the scene. When Zhuqiu Lianzhu saw Chu Jianqiu giving in, he let go of his hand angrily. This Han Ani is really bold and dares to plot evil. He should be glad that he is dead when he attacks the people in my fourth peak, otherwise, this girl will make him regret coming to this world. Zhuqiu Lianzhu sneered. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but feel chills all over. It was rumored that the people in the fourth peak were all lunatics, and they were also famous for protecting their shortcomings. Now it seems that the rumors are indeed true. Zhuqiu Lianzhu waved his hand to summon Yunzhou in the sky, flicked his sleeves, and his true energy turned into 2 giant ropes to trap the body of the blood python and threw it to Yunzhou. Transforming the true energy into substance is the method used by powerful people in the sea transformation realm. After Zhuqiu Lianzhu threw the body of the blood python onto the Yunzhou boat, he immediately swayed and jumped onto the Yunzhou boat. Before boarding Yunzhou, he took a special look at Chu Jianqiu. Chu Jianqiu had no choice but to follow her and board the huge cloud boat. Wan Xiuying, Fulingsu and others did not follow, but returned to the foot of the mountain, boarded the small cloud boat, and followed the cloud boat in front, heading towards the Xianjian sect. At this time, no one had the intention to return to Zunlian City to attend the celebration banquet hosted by the Lord of Zunlian City. Wan Xiuying looked at the embarrassed people and couldn't help but feel sad. A total of 11 people came this time, and only 6 survived. The people from Xianyun society brought by Han Ani were all wiped out. Si Fengkai, the only one who had some relationship with Xianyun society, also lost an arm. Became a useless person. In contrast, Xianxia society's experience has been settled. Except for one woman who died at the hands of the blood python, the others were only seriously injured, at least not in danger of their lives. Although Wan Xiuying was hurt, she was still a little lucky in her heart. Fortunately, Fu Lingxue invited Chu Jianqiu with him this time. Otherwise, they would have been completely wiped out this time, and it would be impossible for anyone to survive. Zhuqiu Lianzhu accompanied them to the Hall of Merit to report on the mission. The deacon elder saw the huge blood python on Yunzhou, and Zhuqiu Lianzhu was present to accompany them, so he did not dare to show any favoritism. Since the difficulty of this mission far exceeded expectations, it naturally could not be counted as the original sea-level mission. The elder deacon classified this mission as a level B mission, and the contribution reward was increased from 90 points to more than 700 points. According to the contribution of this mission, Chu Jianqiu can definitely get most of the contribution value this time. With more than 700 points of contribution value, Chu Jianqiu can get at least 600 points, but Chu Jianqiu did not do this. He only took 200 contribution points and divided the remaining contribution points equally among everyone. After all, everyone had a narrow escape in this mission, so they deserved some compensation. After all, Chu Jianqiu had already obtained the body of the blood python, so he no longer valued this contribution. Of course, among those who shared the contribution value equally, Si Fengkai was excluded. Si Fengkai and Han Ani followed them with impure motives in the first place. Being able to save his life was already an advantage for him, so how could they share the victory with him? Everyone is grateful to God for surviving this disaster, and they don't dare to expect these contribution values at all. Everyone was also surprised that Chu Jianqiu divided the 500 contribution points equally. This time, everyone got at least 100 contribution points. For outer disciples like them, 100 contribution points is almost a year's share of resource allocation. You must know that they, the outer disciples, only receive 10 qi gathering pills a month, and a little contribution value can be exchanged for 1 qi gathering pill, which is more than 100 contribution points. To them, this wealth is not small. Chapter 63 Dan Fu Array. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Jianqiu used the body of the blood python to exchange for a large amount of resources in the treasure pavilion, including a large amount of qi gathering pills, materials for making talismans and materials for laying out formations. In the past, Chu Jianqiu's study of formations was more theoretical than practical, because the materials required to arrange the formations were too expensive and Chu Jianqiu could not afford them with his previous wealth. Moreover, after obtaining the Chaos Supreme Tower, he has been in a crisis-ridden situation. He urgently needs to improve his strength quickly. Even if he has money, he still needs to buy a large amount of elixirs. He simply does not have the spare money to buy the materials for setting up the formation. Talisman array has always been the most expensive profession. To make talismans, you need to use cinnabar and talisman paper. If you are refining low-level talismans, you can just use ordinary cinnabar talismans. If you are refining high-level talismans, those cinnabar talisman papers are not cheap. High-grade cinnabar is made from some precious spiritual mineral powder and monster blood. The cinnabar required for some special talismans also needs to be prepared with some extremely rare items. The tanning of high-level talisman paper requires even rarer materials and treasures. Some require the skins of high-level monsters, and some require rare wooden leaves. As for formation, it is a more expensive occupation than making talismans. Low-level formations may not be difficult to set up. Some can achieve the effect by directly carving formation patterns on the ground without any auxiliary materials, but for some special formations or high-level formations, special materials are necessary. For example, if the Lihua formation can gather real fire, it must have fire attribute materials as the center of the formation in order to mobilize the aura of heaven and earth and transform it into real fire. The Canchui formation also requires water attribute materials as the center in order to be successfully deployed. The first formation that Chu Jianqiu arranged was the alchemy formation. When he obtained the Chaos Supreme Tower, the first formation he learned was also the alchemy formation. When he was just practicing the Chaos Heavenly Emperor technique, he had planned to set up an alchemy array to refine the pills himself because the pills consumed by the Chaos Heavenly Emperor technique were too huge, but later, because the sales revenue of the power-increasing talisman was enough to support his practice at that time, he did not waste time setting up the alchemy talisman array to refine the elixir. Now that he has become a direct disciple of Xianxia sect, no one can threaten his life for the time being, so Chu Jianqiu is not so eager to improve his strength, although the amount of spiritual energy he needs to absorb to advance to a higher level is dozens of times that of ordinary warriors of the same level. The speed at which he absorbs spiritual energy during cultivation is also countless times that of ordinary warriors, even without the support of any cultivation resources. His cultivation speed will not be slower than that of any warrior. But if he has enough resources, his cultivation speed can be increased almost infinitely. Considering that a large amount of elixirs will be consumed in future cultivation, we cannot exchange such a huge amount of elixirs every time. If you often go to the treasure pavilion to redeem such a large amount of elixirs, you will definitely arouse suspicion in the long run. To be on the safe side, it is safest to make the elixir yourself. It happened that I had taken an alchemy course and exchanged a large amount of alchemy materials, which would not arouse anyone's suspicion at all. Because learning alchemy is also a money-burning skill, in the beginner stage, you will inevitably lose a lot of materials. In this way, even if you exchange a large amount of alchemy materials, others will only think that you are wasting them in the process of practicing. At most, they will think that your alchemy materials are lost, the talent is low, but other aspects will not be suspected. and if the elixirs you refine are enough to satisfy your daily practice, and there is still a surplus, you can sell them. Firstly, you can better protect your secrets, and secondly, you can earn some extra income. The alchemy formation is a general term for the formations used to refine elixirs. Not all elixirs are refining using the same formation, of course. The general outline of this type of formation is the same, but some adjustments need to be made to correspond to different pill recipes. The alchemy formations for refining body tempering pills and refining qi gathering pills are naturally different. One is a first-grade elixir, and the other is a second-grade elixir. The corresponding formations are naturally of different grades. The qi gathering pill is one of the most common elixirs among the second-grade elixirs, and its prescriptions are also commonly available. Chu Jianqiu learned this recipe during his alchemy course. Chu Jianqiu got an A grade in both the theoretical and practical alchemy courses, and he naturally knew the refining of a mere qi gathering pill. Due to his familiarity with the elixir formula, Chu Jianqiu did not put in a lot of effort in setting up the elixir formation. After 2 failures, he had successfully arranged the elixir formation. Chu Jianqiu threw the materials into the formation, activated the formation, and stared nervously at the changes in the materials in the alchemy furnace in the formation. After all, this was his first time using a formation to make an elixir. Chu Jianqiu was not sure whether he could succeed or not. The formation was activated, mobilizing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to form a raging lihua. The materials in the pill furnace began to be automatically refined and fused according to the order of the formula. After half an hour, a furnace of qi gathering pills was completed. Chu Jianqiu excitedly took off the pill furnace, poured out the qi gathering pills inside and counted them. There were 50 pills in total. He just threw in 50 parts of qi gathering pill materials, and now he has actually refined 50 qi gathering pills, with a 100% success rate, without any loss, and the refining efficiency has also been improved several times. If Chu Jianqiu uses normal alchemy techniques to refine the qi gathering pill, even if he is very proficient in the theory and techniques, there will still be a 10% loss rate. Refining a batch of 50 parts of the qi gathering pill will, at least it takes half a day, but such achievements are already at an extremely high level among alchemists of the same level. Usually, even very good alchemists will have a loss rate of 20% to 30% when refining alchemy. Those who can control the loss rate within 10% are the most evil alchemists. There won't be a single evildoer in the Xianxia sect for thousands of years, but using this alchemy array to refine elixirs not only results in 0 loss, but also increases the efficiency several times. Although Chu Jianqiu knew that the things inside the Chaos Supreme Tower were absolutely extraordinary, he never expected that they would go so far. It's okay if this Danfu array is used to refine simple elixirs like qi gathering pills. If it is used to refine elixirs that are extremely difficult to refine, with this 0 loss and 0 failure probability, it will inevitably brought unimaginable shock to the alchemy world. Chu Jianqiu was in the alchemy course, but he had heard that it was extremely difficult to refine several high-level elixirs on the Tianwu continent. Even the best alchemists had a success rate of less than 1%. For example, Jianxiang life-sustaining pill and Wuji Yuanxian pill. Of course, this kind of high-level elixir is still too far away for Chu Jianqiu now. Not to mention Chu Jianqiu, even the Xianxian sect has only heard the names of these elixirs, but has never actually seen this legendary elixir. Chapter 64 Xiyang Peak. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Jianqiu began to live a leisurely life on the 4th peak, making talismans, setting up formations, refining elixirs every day, and occasionally attending a few classes at the outer sect. The knowledge imparted in the outer classes is mostly the basis of each skill. After half a year of study, Chu Jianqiu has basically mastered these basic knowledge. Most of the courses taught in the outer sect now are of little use to Chu Jianqiu, except for courses involving intensive lectures. Chu Jianqiu would only attend them. If you want to further deepen those skills, you can either go to the Sutra Pavilion to read relevant classics and study on your own, or you can study under the disciples of elders who are proficient in those skills for further study. Chu Jianqiu had already accepted Cui Yayun as his disciple, so it was naturally impossible for him to become a disciple of another elder. Now if you want to study further, you can only study by yourself through the classics in the Tibetan Scripture Pavilion. Of course, if he encounters something he doesn't understand, he can also spend a certain amount of contribution points to ask the elders to help him clarify his doubts. Chu Jianqiu endured his heartache and paid 100 contribution points, redeemed the detailed explanation of alchemy prescriptions in the scripture collection pavilion, and left under the strange and mocking eyes of the deacon disciples of the scripture collection pavilion. Damn it, this guy is out of his mind. The deacon disciple looked at Chu Jianqiu's leaving figure and muttered to himself, in this short period of half a year, Chu Jianqiu exchanged no less than 50 precious classics in the scripture collection pavilion. These 50 precious classics involve talismans, formations, alchemy, weapon refining, vegetation, minerals, medicine, martial arts. Almost all categories of books in the scripture pavilion are involved. The exchange prices for these classics are not cheap. The cheapest ones are worth 30 contribution points each. For an outer disciple, this is 3 months of resource allocation, yet he actually squandered it like this, and this guy is really rich. In the past 5 months, he spent no less than 3,000 contribution points just to redeem these tomes. With 3,000 contribution points, it is not easy for even the inner disciples to earn so many contribution points. Chu Jianqiu looked at the detailed explanation of alchemy prescriptions in his hand, remembering the 100 contribution points he had just paid, and couldn't help but bared his teeth in distress. This is so damn dark. A mere detailed explanation of alchemy recipes actually costs 100 contribution points. This detailed explanation of alchemy prescriptions is only the first volume in the complete detailed explanation of alchemy prescriptions, which explains in detail the elixir prescriptions of all second-grade elixirs collected by Xianxia sect. If it were put on the market, this detailed elixir recipe book would naturally be worth more than 100 qi gathering pills. However, Xianxia sect would naturally not be able to charge its own disciples at the market price. Chu Jianqiu looked at the contribution points on the token. There was only a pitiful 100 points left on it. He couldn't help but rub his forehead. The remaining contribution points were not enough. After nearly half a year of massive expenditure, the large amount of contribution value he had exchanged for the blood python corpse half a year ago had already been squandered. He was able to have so much contribution value to support his massive squandering because he secretly sold talismans and elixirs several times during this period. In the past 6 months, Chu Jianqiu has not only gained deeper knowledge in talisman Dao, formations, etc., he has also made great progress in his cultivation. His realm has broken through from the first level of the true Qi realm to the third level of the true Qi realm. In the past 6 months of practice, Chu Jianqiu only swallowed 10 Qi gathering pills every day, and did not pursue the speed of practice too much. This time, in order to make his cultivation realm more stable, he forcibly improved his realm through a large number of pills. Although the progress was amazing, it was not as solid as steady cultivation. Breaking through 2 realms in a row within half a year is enough to shock the world. If the speed were any faster, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. After all, when he tested his qualifications in Tianshui City, he only showed the bloodline of a low-level sky-level person. Chu Jianqiu used the alchemy array to refine several furnaces of elixirs, put on a black cloak, covered his face, picked up a large package, and went out. At Xiyang Peak, 50 miles south of the 7 peaks of Xianxia sect, there is a trading market established by disciples of Xianxia sect. Although the Xianxia sect does not allow its disciples to trade privately, all the proceeds can only be returned to the sect's treasure pavilion in exchange for contribution points, and then the contribution points can be used to exchange for what you need. But not all disciples will abide by this rule. Some disciples don't want what they possess to be known to outsiders, and some disciples don't want the things they gain while practicing outside to be seen. And one of the biggest reasons is that the deacon disciples of Zhenbao Pavilion will always make certain deductions from the treasures they hand over to some ordinary disciples who have no background, causing the contribution value of those disciples to be greatly reduced, which causes those dissatisfaction with the disciples. Although the upper echelons of Xianxia sect knew about the existence of Xiyang Peak, they did not ban it. Instead, they turned a blind eye. Chu Jianqiu didn't want his details to be known too much by others, so although the refined elixirs and spiritual talismans could be directly returned to the treasure pavilion to exchange for contribution points, as his personal disciple, I understand that the deacon disciples of the treasure pavilion would also don't dare to deduct your own contribution. But Chu Jianqiu still didn't give all his refined talismans and elixirs to the treasure pavilion to exchange for contribution points. The talismans and elixirs used to exchange for contribution points were all very common talismans and elixirs. Chu Jianqiu went down to the fourth peak and came to a deserted place. He took out a spiritual talisman and pinched the magic spell. The talisman immediately turned into a spiritual crane in the wind. This is a new spiritual talisman that Chu Jianqiu learned from the Chaos Supreme Tower. It can transform the spiritual talisman into various spiritual birds and beasts. Chu Jianqiu stepped on the spiritual crane transformed from the spiritual talisman and flew towards Xiyang Peak. Fuhe's speed was very fast, and he flew to Xiyang Peak in just one stick of incense. Chu Jianqiu landed at the foot of Xiyang Peak, put away the talisman crane, and walked up the mountain. Chu Jianqiu of Xiangfeng had been here more than once, and he was no stranger to it. He quickly found a deacon disciple from Fengshi, paid the rent, rented a stall, took off the big package on his body, and began to sell what he had in hand. Although items can be stored in the Chaos Supreme Tower, Chu Jianqiu did not dare to expose this to outsiders. Space magic weapons are extremely precious. If Chu Jianqiu reveals that he has a space magic weapon, even within the Xianxia sect, there may be people who can't help but be tempted and take extraordinary risks to attack him, which could lead to death. In order to conceal the existence of the Supreme Chaos Tower, Chu Jianqiu was always cautious and did not dare to reveal any trace of the existence of the Supreme Chaos Tower. The items in Chu Jianqiu's package were all kinds of elixirs and talismans, although he also learned about weapon refining. Apart from refining a first-class magic weapon in the Outer Sex course examination, his study of weapon refining was more of a theoretical study. Chapter 65 Regular Customers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The trading market in Xiyang Peak is controlled by the Lingxiao Society and Yingfeng Society in the Inner Gate. If you want to sell goods here, you must pay a certain amount of rent to them. The night is getting darker, but the lighting magic weapons on both sides of the street make the entire city as bright as day. The fall of night not only did not reduce the flow of people in Xiyang Peak, but actually became more lively. The market sells not only various elixirs, magic weapons and talismans, but also some self-destructive female disciples who exchange their bodies for cultivation resources. Therefore, this colorful city is very popular among Xianxia sect disciples, and many disciples from the sect come here every day. Stalls were set up on both sides of the streets in Fengshi, and some disciples who set up stalls were selling hard. The streets were bustling with people coming and going. Xianxia sect has a long history in the Daqian dynasty, with tens of thousands of disciples. Xianxia sect is located far away from secular cities. Over time, the market in Xiyang Peak has actually become like a small market town. Many disciples in the city wore cloaks and black robes like Chu Jianqiu to hide their identities, but most disciples still showed their true colors. Brother Tianxue, you are finally here. As soon as Chu Jianqiu set up the stall, two people walked up. Chu Jianqiu recognized these two people as his old customers. One was named Xue Liyan and the other was named Ma Jingyao. Both of them were inner disciples. We haven't seen each other for a month. Congratulations to these two senior brothers for their great improvement in cultivation. Chu Jianqiu said with a smile. A month ago, these two people were at the 7th level of the True Qi realm. In just 1 month, they were both promoted to the 8th level of the True Qi realm. This is all thanks to Brother Tianxue. If it weren't for Brother Tianxue's talisman, both of us would have died in that secret realm, let alone the opportunity. Xue Liyan said with a smile. It's just a pity that Brother Tianxue didn't show his face. Otherwise, we all want to get to know Brother Tianxue. Ma Jingyao looked at Chu Jianqiu's black robe that covered him with some regret. Chu Jianqiu smiled noncommittally. He was selling magic spells and elixirs here. Naturally, he couldn't use his real name. Otherwise, there would be no difference between it and not covering up. Since he was from Tianxue City, Chu Jianqiu randomly named himself Tianxue. Brother Tianxue, what good goods do you have this time? That's not good. Although this black-robed man named Tianxue seemed to be only at the 3rd level of True Qi realm in terms of cultivation, he gave him an unfathomable feeling. For someone with such a low level of cultivation to be able to possess such a precious spiritual talisman, his identity may not be simple. Among the spiritual talismans that the black-robed man was selling, He had never heard of the Xianxian sect having such talismans after staying in the inner sect for so long. The power-increasing talisman was just that. Although the power-increasing talisman sold by the black-robed man reached the high-grade talisman, although this surprised him, it was not too unusual. Although the second-level power-enhancing talisman of the high-grade talisman was mysterious. Not many people in the sword sect can refine it, but after all, there are still some, but the escape talisman shocked him. This kind of talisman was very rare even in the entire Dacian dynasty. It's not that the refining of this kind of spiritual talisman is difficult, but that the runes of this kind of spiritual talisman are very precious. Although similar spiritual talismans appeared in the Dacian dynasty, the grade of those runes was not good. The refined spiritual talismans could only reach low-grade talismans. Occasionally, with good luck, a few mid-grade talismans would appear. Talisman. It is rare that the escape talisman sold by the man in black robe actually reaches the high-grade talisman courage. Xue Lian himself is also a second-level spiritual talisman master, and he knows that for a spiritual talisman master, the most important thing is the runes. If there are no good runes, no matter how high the level of runes is, it will be difficult to refine magical runes with amazing effects. In order to learn the Tao of Talisman at that time, Xue Lian also read many books on the Tao of Talisman in the Tibetan scripture pavilion. In his impression, Xianxian sect definitely did not have such spiritual talismans as the escape talisman. Otherwise, within the Xianxian sect, many spiritual talisman masters have become prosperous just by relying on this kind of talisman. Moreover, Xue Lian had never heard of a person like Tian Shui in the Xianxian sect before. However, when this black-robed man was selling spiritual talismans, he was charging Xianxian sect's contribution points, but he was obviously not a disciple of another sect. Combined with the Xianxian sect's 10-year enrollment a year ago, this man in black robe is probably a new disciple who has received some inheritance of talisman Dao. Xue Lian had no interest in exploring Chu Jianqiu's background. Such things that touched other people's taboos would only make enemies in vain. Xue Lian did not want to offend the spiritual talisman master who had received a powerful talisman inheritance. Even though the black-robed man's cultivation level is still low, Xue Lian, as a spiritual talisman master, knows very well that the spiritual talisman master's combat power cannot be inferred based on common sense. A powerful spiritual talisman is enough to kill those who are several realms higher than himself. Musha. Moreover, the combat methods of the talisman master are endless and difficult to guard against. You never know what kind of talisman your opponent is hiding. Although Xue Lian's talisman Tao talent is good, Xianxian sect is not one of those specialized talisman Tao sects after all. Although it has inheritance in talisman Tao, it does not have a high system inheritance, and it is also lacking in runes. They are common runes, and there are no unique runes. Xue Lian's ability to become a second-grade talisman master has already reached the end of the talisman Dao. Unless he can obtain additional talisman Dao inheritance, he will not be able to go further by relying solely on the Xianxian sect and the spirit talisman. As a spiritual talisman master, Xue Lian is well aware of the spiritual talisman master's methods, so he is even more wary of the spiritual talisman master, just like this experience in the secret realm. If they hadn't bought a few spiritual talismans from the black-robed man in advance, I'm afraid the two of them would have died in that secret realm, let alone get the opportunity in that secret realm to improve their cultivation. One level up. The spiritual talismans include the power-enhancing talisman, the golden shield talisman, the flash escape talisman, the wind-traveling talisman and the crane. The elixirs include the chi restoration pill, the detoxification pill, the bigger pill, and the blood-strengthening pill. If the two senior brothers like anything, feel free to pick it. When he heard Xue Lian's words, Chu Jianqiu immediately said enthusiastically that these two people were big customers. Last time they were with him, they contributed a lot of value to him. Ma Jingyao looked at those magic talismans. Although his mouth was watering, he was also pained by the prices. The things are good, but the price is a bit too expensive. Ma Jingyao bared his teeth and said, in order to buy those talismans, he and Xue Lian spent almost all their savings at Chu Jianqiu's place last time. Chapter 66 Big Python Tianlin Armor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This talisman is so expensive. Let's buy a few more this time. Can it be cheaper, brother? That a flash escape talisman requires 1,000 contribution points, a golden shield talisman requires 300 points, and a power increasing talisman requires 500 points. Last time he and Ma Jingyao bought one of each of these three kinds of talismans, which wiped out all their wealth. However, it was these three talismans that saved their lives 3 times in that secret realm. They tasted the sweetness, so they came here to wait as soon as they returned to the sect. Expensive? Chu Jianqiu was immediately displeased when he heard this. These magic talismans of mine are life-saving things at critical times. If not for the sake of my fellow disciples, I wouldn't even sell them. Life is more important than contribution value. If you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't want to buy it, go away and don't hinder my business. No, brother Tianxue, don't be angry, we are just talking. Xue Lian quickly said with a smile. The preciousness of these talismans is self-evident. One more talisman is equivalent to one more life. If Chu Jianqiu is really angry and does not sell it to them, then their losses will be huge. Next, Xianxia sect will have a more dangerous secret trial. Without a few life-saving trump cards, they can't guarantee that they can come out alive. Seeing Xue Lian's attitude, Chu Jianqiu gave up. Of course, it was impossible for him not to sell the magic talisman to the two of them. After all, they were regular customers. The two of them alone contributed more than 3,000 points to him last time. Contribution, being so careful, just stopped them from bargaining. Otherwise, the people behind him would follow suit, and everyone would bargain for a price. He didn't want to start such a bad start. Brother Tianxue, can this contribution value be replaced by something else? Xue Lian said cautiously. This is because almost all the contribution points were used up when I bought the talisman last time, and now I really can't get any extra contribution points. What is it? Chu Jianqiu said with interest. In Xianxia sect, the most precious thing is of course the contribution value, but if there are other things of equal value and he can use them, Chu Jianqiu doesn't mind accepting them. Seeing that Chu Jianqiu didn't refuse, Xue Lian was overjoyed. What he was most afraid of was that Chu Jianqiu insisted on contribution value and nothing else, which would be a bit troublesome. If that was the case, he would have to go back to the treasure pavilion again and exchange the things he gained in the secret realm into contribution points. In this way, with the piss-proneness of the deacon disciples of the treasure pavilion, they, ordinary inner disciples without much background, will definitely be deducted again, and the contribution value received will be greatly reduced. Moreover, after redeeming the contribution points, Chu Jianqiu had no idea whether he still had the talisman in hand. All of the spiritual talismans that Chu Jianqiu sells are hot-selling goods, and they don't have to worry about sales at all. They are afraid that when they turn around, Chu Jianqiu's spiritual talismans have been sold out, and then they really won't be able to cry. Xue Lian took off the big package from his back and took out a piece of armor. This is a second-level top-grade defensive magic weapon, the Python Tianlin armor. It has extremely strong defense. Even a warrior at the 9th level of the true Qi realm cannot break through its defense. Xue Lian handed over the armor to Chu Jianqiu. He kept praising him. Chu Jianqiu took the armor and looked at it carefully. His knowledge of weapon refining was not in vain, so he could easily distinguish the grade of this armor. Xue Lian's, although the words are a bit exaggerated, it is not outrageous. If faced with an ordinary warrior at the 9th level of the true Qi realm, this magic weapon can indeed resist for a while. 2 escape talismans. Chu Jianqiu offered the price. He happened to be short of a defensive magic weapon. Xue Lian's magic weapon was of good quality, so Chu Jianqiu was naturally happy to exchange it. Brother, this is a bit missing. Xue Lian said with a bitter face. Less. Quite a lot. Chu Jianqiu waved his hand and said, this armor of yours can only withstand the temporary attack of a warrior at the 9th level of the true Qi realm. If you really encounter an enemy at the 9th level of the true Qi realm, you may be able to rely on it. Escape with your life. My escape talisman can escape from the battlefield in an instant and escape with a life. Which one is more valuable? Senior brother Shui has no idea. I will give you 2 escape talismans. This is because senior brother Shui is a regular customer. For my love, Shui Lian couldn't help but be a little speechless. Can this magic weapon and talisman be converted in this way? Magical weapons can be used for a long time, but this type of talisman is a consumable. However, Shui Lian couldn't refute it, because if he really encountered the situation that Chu Jianqiu said, the escape talisman would indeed be more useful than the Python Tianlin armor. Take the dangers he encountered in the secret realm this time as an example. In one of them, he could not escape the disaster if he took the Python Tianlin armor, but the escape talisman allowed him to escape. Shui Lian had no choice but to accept his fate and took the 2 escape talismans, and then took out a fist-sized piece of purple gold ore from the big package. Although I don't know what kind of ore this ore is, the grade is definitely above the 3rd level. I took it out to exchange with brother Tianxue because of my fate with him. When Shui Lian said this, his face did not even turn red. Although the grade of this ore is good, he is not a refiner. This ore is of no use to him at all. If he takes it to the treasure pavilion to exchange for contribution value, it may not even be comparable to the great Python Tianlin armor. Chu Jianqiu took the ore and his heart skipped a beat. Xiyang Golden Thunder Mine. Chu Jianqiu couldn't help but show a hint of fire in his eyes. Shui Lian didn't recognize this ore, but it was no stranger to Chu Jianqiu, who got a first-class grade in the mineral identification course. The Xiyang Golden Thunder Mine is a dignified 4th-level spiritual mine. As long as a trace is added to the magic weapon, the performance of the magic weapon can be greatly improved. This mineral is extremely precious and rare, and its value is higher than some 5th-level spiritual minerals. Even a piece the size of a thumb can be sold for a sky-high price, let alone one as big as a fist, but obviously, Shui Lian doesn't know the goods. Although Shui Lian was boasting on the surface, Chu Jianqiu, an expert, could see at a glance that Shui Lian had no idea about the value of this spiritual mine. It is estimated that in his heart, if this spiritual mine can be sold for the same price as the Python Tianlin armor, I am afraid he will be happy. Chu Jianqiu glanced at Shui Lian and remained calm on the surface. When meeting such an ignorant person, it seemed that he had made a big mistake this time. With 3,000 contribution points, senior brother Shui can choose spiritual talismans and elixirs of comparable value. Chu Jianqiu said calmly. Shui Lian's heart was shocked, and he was overjoyed. It seemed that this guy was really deceived by him, and he actually offered such a high price for such a broken stone. Chapter 67 Robbery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shui Lian gave a thumbs up and said, Brother Tianxue really has a vision. Although he praised Chu Jianqiu on the surface, he was secretly enjoying himself because he finally took advantage of this profiteer. No matter how high the grade of this mineral is, it is useless to them before it is refined into a magic weapon. The refining of a magic weapon cannot be completed using only one mineral material. Although this piece of purple gold ore seemed to be of high grade, its usefulness to him was far inferior to the value of the Python Tianlin armor. Moreover, for materials like minerals, it is extremely difficult to sell them unless the refiner can collect them. Unless they are sold to those chambers of commerce that know the goods, they will not be sold at a good price at all. With 3,000 contribution points, I really made a lot of money this time. Although Shui Lian was ecstatic in his heart, he remained calm on the surface, not showing that he had taken advantage at all. But he was afraid that Chu Jianqiu would suddenly come to his senses and regret it, so he quickly picked a few magic talismans. This time, in addition to picking another escape talisman, he also picked 2 power-increasing talismans and 3 golden shield talismans. A few more life-saving talismans like the escape talisman would not be too much for him, but they were just too expensive. Ma Jingyao immediately started thinking when he saw that Shui Lian had exchanged so many talismans with a piece of broken stone. It was obvious that Chu Jianqiu was very familiar with magic weapons, elixirs, and talisman arrays. It was impossible to take advantage of him in these aspects. Only those things that look weird and of higher quality can fool him. Ma Jingyao thought for a while and took out 2 things from the package. One was a pair of boots and the other was a piece of wood. These boots are also second-level top-grade magic weapons. They are called wind-controlling boots. For true energy warriors, they can double the speed. Ma Jingyao handed the boots to Chu Jianqiu. Chu Jianqiu took the wind-controlling boots, looked at them, and gave them the same price as the Python Tianlin armor. The defensive nature of a warrior is certainly important, but speed cannot be underestimated either. If a warrior's movement speed reaches a certain level, the opponent cannot even touch him, and he is already in an invincible position. Ma Jingyao also took out 2 escape talismans, and at the same time took out a piece of wood. Neither Ma Jingyao nor Xue Lian recognized this piece of wood, but they judged it to be a third-level material based on the smell on the surface. Although Chu Jianqiu accepted it this time, he only gave a contribution of 2,000 points. However, Ma Jingyao was not disappointed at all, but contentedly picked 2 power-increasing talismans and 3 golden shield talismans. He didn't recognize this piece of wood at all, and it was of no use to him in his hands. Being able to exchange it for a few talismans was already a huge profit. Chu Jianqiu looked at these 2 guys as if they had found treasures, and felt a sense of superiority in his heart. He couldn't help but secretly sigh in his heart. Sure enough, knowledge is wealth. The classes he has taken in the outer classroom this year and the lessons he has learned in Xiyang Pavilion Middle School, sure enough, I learned nothing in vain. If these 2 guys knew what this mineral and this wood were, how could they exchange them with these mere talismans? It's true that you don't even know the treasures in your hands. After Xue Lian and Ma Jingyao exchanged the necessary talismans, they packed up the packages with satisfaction and prepared to leave. What they obtained in that secret realm was naturally far more than these few things, but those things were very important to them. They all have great uses. Now that they have obtained the spiritual talismans they need, they are reluctant to exchange those treasures. Hey, aren't these senior brother Xue and senior brother Ma? That when Xue Lian and Ma Jingyao were packing their packages, a sharp-eyed disciple suddenly recognized them. How did senior brother Xue and senior brother Ma gain in that secret realm this time? Several disciples immediately gathered around. Just so. Xue Lian said perfunctorily with a smile, put the package behind him, and strode away with Ma Jingyao, leaving behind the disciples who looked at each other. I heard that the secret realm that was opened in the eastern wasteland was extremely dangerous. Several senior brothers at the 9th level of the true Qi realm died in that secret realm. There were countless casualties among the senior brothers below the 9th level of the true Qi realm. Unexpectedly, the 2 of them to be able to come out alive, and to have improved my realm by 1 level, I'm really lucky. A disciple said with envy as he watched the 2 people leaving. This is not some bullshit luck. I heard that the senior brother who came back from the eastern wasteland this time said that at the most dangerous moment, the 2 of them suddenly disappeared and escaped from the scene. Only then did they escape. Escape from the scene instantly. What kind of method is this? I heard that the 2 of them seemed to have used some magic talisman. Spell, that when the disciples heard this, they all suddenly looked at Chu Jianqiu. In the past few times, this guy also set up a stall here, and the spiritual talismans he sold were extremely expensive, and the efficacy was very deceiving. At that time, many people did not believe that this guy who was pretending to be a ghost could refine it with such a low level of cultivation. Such a miraculous charm. Moreover, the price tags of these talismans are too expensive, and not many people are willing to take advantage of them and use so much contribution value to verify the authenticity of this guy's talismans. But at that time, many people saw that Xue Lian and Ma Jingyao had bought magic talismans from this guy. At that time, some people laughed that these 2 people were idiots and believed such fakes. As a result, those who laughed at Xue Lian and Ma Jingyao stayed in the secret realm of Donghuang, but these 2 people came back with a lot of money. While everyone was lamenting the uncertainty of the world, 2 more groups of people came to Chu Jianqiu's stall and exchanged a few talismans. Everyone recognized that these people were the ones who had bought talismans from Chu Jianqiu before. This time the Xianxia secret realm is opening. I heard that all the inner disciples will participate. Yes, the Blood Evil sect is planning a big move this time. I heard that they need something, which happens to be in the New Zay secret realm. I heard that this time the sect will stop the Blood Evil sect from getting that thing at all costs. Yes, once something like that is obtained by the Blood Evil sect, I'm afraid no one in the entire Dacian dynasty can check and balance it. At that time, our Xianxian sect will be the first to bear the brunt and may be in danger of annihilation. The opening of the Xianxia secret realm this time will inevitably lead to a desperate battle with the Blood Evil sect. It is estimated that not many disciples who enter the secret realm this time will be able to come out alive. So buy a few more life-saving talismans as soon as possible, and you will have a better chance of survival. Last time I went to the Eastern Wasteland's secret realm, I was lucky to have prepared these talismans. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to come back. The conversations of the disciples who bought the magic talismans gradually faded away. Those disciples who were still watching looked at each other in confusion, and suddenly rushed to Chu Jianqiu's stall and started grabbing the magic talisman pills. The effects of these talismans have been verified by those disciples, so they will naturally no longer doubt it. The quantity of this kind of life-saving thing is limited. If someone else grabs it first, you won't be able to get it. Chapter 68 Summoning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Jianqiu came down from Xiyang Peak with a big package on his back. The talismans and elixirs he brought this time were all sold out. Some of the disciples who bought the spiritual talisman elixir used their contribution points to buy it, while others who did not have enough contribution points used their own treasures to exchange for it. Now the treasures in the hands of those disciples have become packages on his back. Chu Jianqiu came to a deserted place, put the package into the Chaos Supreme Tower, then took out the Wind Talisman crane and returned to the fourth peak. On his way down to Xiyang Peak, there were several people with ill intentions following him. Although Chu Jianqiu was not afraid of them, in order to save himself from unnecessary trouble, Chu Jianqiu directly used a flash of dodge. With the escape talisman, he instantly escaped 5 miles away and got rid of those people's tracking. When those figures saw Chu Jianqiu disappearing in an instant, they couldn't help but look at each other. Damn it, I'm so willing to give up. This is 1,000 contribution points, and it's just gone. These people also bought the talisman from Chu Jianqiu, so they naturally knew that Chu Jianqiu used the escape talisman. These talismans are all sold by others, and they still care about 1 or 2. Besides, he must have earned tens of thousands of points tonight in terms of contribution points alone. A mere 1,000 points of contribution points is not a trivial matter to him. Another person sneered. He said, but his tone was full of jealousy. Who is this guy? How come I have never heard of such a number one person before? Someone asked curiously. I guess he is a new disciple. Judging from his low cultivation level, he is probably still an outer disciple. We will find out when we go to the outer disciples and inquire about it. How can such a fat sheep be allowed to run away? Chu Jianqiu drove the Fengxing Fuha back to the fourth peak. As soon as he stepped into the room, he suddenly saw the figure wearing a floral dress inside, and he couldn't help but be startled. Why did Zhuqiu Lianzhu come to his room so late? Senior Sister Zhuqiu, it's so late, do you have anything to do with me? Chu Jianqiu asked with some doubts. Zhuqiu Lianzhu usually never saw her end, and it was difficult to see her for many days. Today, she actually took the initiative to show up. In his own room, this really surprised Chu Jianqiu. Master wants to see you. Zhuqiu Lianzhu said calmly, turned around and walked out of the room. Chu Jianqiu was even more surprised and confused. Master Cui Yayan had not seen him 3 times since he recruited him, so why did he suddenly want to see him today? Moreover, looking at Zhuqiu Lianzhu's appearance, she was not as lively and cheerful as usual, and there was a heavy sadness between her brows. Master, what do you want from me? Chu Jianqiu couldn't help but ask. He always felt that something bad had happened. We'll find out when we meet Master. Why are you asking so many questions? Zhuqiu Lianzhu said impatiently, losing his temper very rarely. Chu Jianqiu confirmed that things were unusual. The atmosphere along the way was very depressing. Not long after, the two walked to Cui Yayan's main hall. Chu Jianqiu followed Zhuqiu Lianzhu and walked in. He saw Cui Yayan sitting cross-legged on the futon. Her face was pale, but there was a blood-colored shadow hanging between her eyebrows, which looked extremely strange. Chu Jianqiu saluted Cui Yayan, and at Cui Yayan's signal, he and Zhuqiu Lianzhu sat on a chair on the side. I called you here today to teach you the martial arts of the fourth peak. Cui Yaoyun said straight to the point as soon as he opened his mouth. Chu Jianqiu heard this and ate. Startled, he stood up in a hurry and said, "Disciple doesn't dare. It's so late, master needs to rest, and disciple is not in a hurry at this moment." Cui Yaoyun's situation is obviously very bad now. Although Chu Jianqiu was slightly dissatisfied with the fact that Cui Yaoyun had not taught him any martial arts in the past year since he recruited him, he was not resentful. How could Cui Yaoyun teach him martial arts in such a state? Even if Cui Yaoyun didn't care, Chu Jianqiu himself would feel uneasy. Cui Yaoyun waved his hand and said, "If you don't pass it on now, I'm afraid there will be no chance in the future." That when Chu Jianqiu heard this, he was even more shocked and said, "Master, what does this mean?" Master was poisoned by the Blood Evil sect's blue dark poison during the fight with the demons of the Blood Evil sect. From now on, he will have to stay in seclusion for a long time to force the blood poison out of his body. Chu Jianqiu interjected. She knew that the master would not tell such a thing, but she was afraid that Chu Jianqiu would misunderstand the master without knowing the reason. "Master, don't worry, I will definitely find the Tianji black dragon grass this time," Chu Jianqiu said firmly. "Nonsense, do you know the risks of forcing yourself into the situation?" Cui Yaoyun's face instantly darkened and he shouted. "But I will never watch master turn a blind eye like this," Chu Jianqiu said stubbornly. "My master will never allow this. You must not go to the opening of the Xianxia secret realm this time. If you dare to disobey my order, don't blame my master for kicking you out of the door." Cui Yaoyun said sternly. Chu Jianqiu couldn't help being shocked. "Master." She wanted to argue further. "Okay, you go out first. Don't mention this matter again." Cui Yaoyun waved Chu Jianqiu out of the hall. Chu Jianqiu felt silent for a while, fearing that Cui Yaoyun's condition was much more serious than he thought. "The reason why I didn't teach you the martial arts of this peak before is because your talent is too outstanding. I have to be very careful about teaching you martial arts. I must choose the martial arts that suits your own qualifications and attributes, so as not to be affected by it. The teaching of martial arts is inappropriate, but it will delay you. Secondly, there have been frequent changes in the Blood Evil sect this year. Most of my time and energy have been focused on paying attention to the changes in the Blood Evil sect. I have indeed not taken good care of you. Disciple doesn't dare. The disciple's own affairs are small, but the sect's affairs are big. If the sect's major affairs are delayed because of the disciple's affairs, then the disciple will become the sinner of Xianxia sect." Chu Jianqiu stood up quickly and said, in the past year that he has been in Xianxia sect, although Xianxia sect itself has various shortcomings, Xianxia sect has been generally good to him. Although his master did not teach him any martial arts, he learned a lot in the outer classes and the Sutra Pavilion. Therefore, he still has a sense of belonging to Xianxia sect, so these words are not entirely cosmetic. Cui Yaoyun nodded happily. With her eyes, she could naturally tell whether Chu Jianqiu's words were just superficial words or the truth. Although it is not very sincere, it is still somewhat sincere. You are able to cultivate a supreme martial body, and your combat power in every realm is far superior to that of warriors in the same realm. It seems that you are not just relying on your own talent. The skills you practice must also be extraordinary. You must have gained something. An incredible inheritance. Cui Yaoyun's next word struck Chu Jianqiu like thunder. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Cui Yaoyun warily. Chapter 69 Teaching the Sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cui Yaoyun smiled slightly and said, "Don't be so nervous. As a master, I am not so bad as to steal the opportunity of my apprentice. However, even if you have your own skills, I will still teach you the skills of this peak. As for whether to practice or not, you decide for yourself. As for what exercises you practice, since you don't want to tell me, I won't force you, but I can't give you guidance on the practice of exercises. You have to rely on you figured it out on your own. Today I only need to teach you the fundamental mental method of this peak, Shuai Liu Shuang Ju, and the highest martial arts of this peak, Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique. As for the other martial arts and mental techniques of this peak, you can tell me in the future. Please ask senior sisters Huiqiu or senior sister Luo for advice. When Chu Jianqiu heard Cui Yayan's words, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Just now, he really thought that Cui Yayan wanted to hand over the inheritance of the Chaos Heavenly Emperor technique. Now it seems that he was overly worried, but it's no wonder that Chu Jianqiu is so vigilant. It's really because the Chaos Heavenly Emperor technique is too heaven-defying. It is a technique created by an ancient power from the Chaos period. This kind of technique is of the same level as Chu Jianqiu. It is estimated to be beyond the awareness of the entire Nanzhou warrior world. For this level of skill, if others know about it, they may not be greedy. In the world of warriors, it is not uncommon for masters and apprentices to kill each other, and husbands and wives to kill each other for the sake of opportunity. Cui Yayan asked Chu Jianqiu to come forward and put her finger on Chu Jianqiu's eyebrows. Chu Jianqiu suddenly felt a large amount of information pouring into his mind, and two more skills suddenly appeared in his mind: Water Moon Flowing Frost Art and Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique. Seeing these two techniques, Chu Jianqiu couldn't help but be shocked. Shueyueliushuang Ju is a low-level martial arts technique, and Qinglu Xiaokong's sword Ju is also a low-grade martial arts. There are two earth-level techniques in one move, and the Xianxian Sex Foundation is indeed profound. After Cui Yayan taught these two techniques, her face became even paler. You can study Shueyueliushuang Ju by yourself, and it is up to you to decide whether to practice it or not. Qinglu Xiaokong's sword Ju is one of the 7 major sword techniques of our Xianxian sect. If you practice it to a great level, it will be as powerful as no lower than a mid-level martial artist. There are 15 levels in Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique. Come with me and I will demonstrate it to you. Cui Yayan stood up, walked out of the hall, came to the square outside, and slowly drew out the long sword in his hand. Even though Cui Yayan's body seemed extremely weak at this time, as the long sword was unsheathed, a sharp sword energy immediately emanated from her delicate body, reaching into the sky. The rising sword energy alone actually split several cracks in the white clouds in the night sky. Chu Jianqiu was shocked when he saw this. This is the power of a strong man in the Yuan Dan realm. Under this sword energy soaring into the sky, Chu Jianqiu felt that he was as weak as an ant, with no power to resist. At the same time, Chu Jianqiu also had infinite yearning in his heart. It turned out that this was the real strong man. Cui Yayan used the Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique one after another, and the sharp sword energy enveloped the entire 4th peak. However, Cui Yayan controlled the power of the sword very exquisitely. Although the power of the sword was extremely powerful, it did not damage the buildings on the 4th peak. The 15 levels of Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique are actually 15 styles of sword techniques. Cui Yayan practiced until the 13th sword, and then stopped. Qinglu Xiaokong's sword technique has 15 moves, and I have only practiced 13 moves. Except for the founder of the sect, this sword technique has been practiced for a long time. No one can master them all. I hope this sword art can flourish in your hands. Cui Yayan's frail figure stood under the night sky, and the night wind blew her black clothes, making her look somewhat indescribably desolate. This Joshua's sword was used by me when I was young, and now I give it to you as well. Cui Yayan threw the long sword in his hand. Chu Jianqiu was stunned and hurriedly reached out to take it. He was still immersed in the stunning scene. Among the swordsmanship. Okay, let's come here today. You go back first and study it carefully. If you don't understand anything, you can ask your 2 senior sisters for advice. Cui Yayan waved his hand and said slowly with his back to Chu Jianqiu. Walk towards the main hall. Chu Jianqiu bowed and was about to retreat, but suddenly he saw Cui Yayan stagger and throw himself forward. Chu Jianqiu was shocked. Before he had time to think, his body had already reacted. He quickly moved forward and supported Cui Yayan, who was about to fall. Cui Yayan's eyes were closed tightly at this time. She had fainted, and blood slowly overflowed from her mouth. Chu Jianqiu reached out and felt Cui Yayan's pulse, and was suddenly shocked. Although his medical attainments are not very advanced, he has reached the level of a second-grade doctor. so he can naturally diagnose Cui Yayan's physical condition at this time. Cui Yayan not only suffered severe damage to her internal organs, but the poison she was exposed to was already eroding her internal organs. Considering the depth of her poisoning at this time, if there was no antidote, her life would be in danger. How could she be forced out by seclusion? Chu Jianqiu looked at Cui Yayan in his arms and struggled for a long time. To be honest, before today, although Cui Yayan was his master on the surface, he really didn't have much feelings for Cui Yayan. Cui Yayan recruited him into his family, and he stayed there for a year. He usually didn't even pay attention to him, let alone teach martial arts. Naturally, he didn't have much affection for Cui Yayan, but today, when Cui Yayan was seriously injured and poisoned, she knew that she would not live long, but she still insisted on passing on the unique skills of this peak to him, hoping to fulfill the duties of a master before she died. Chu Jianqiu knew that if Cui Yayan had not insisted on performing this swordsmanship, she would have been able to last at least 3 more months with her cultivation, but now, in order to teach him the secret knowledge of this peak, the injuries in the body have been affected again, and the true energy in the body can no longer suppress the erosion of those poisonous poisons. With her current condition, it might be difficult for her to survive for another half-month. Chu Jianqiu hesitated for a while, and finally sighed. He looked around and saw that no one was around, so he used his true energy to force out a drop of his life essence and blood, and touched Cui Yayan's forehead. As the drop of natal essence and blood was slowly absorbed, the vitality in Cui Yayan's body was instantly stimulated, suppressing the raging poison again. Chu Jianqiu endured the severe pain in his body and carried Cui Yayan into the hall. The drop of his natal essence and blood now only stimulates Cui Yayan's own life potential, but cannot relieve Cui Yayan of the poison. Although the bloodline of the Supreme Chaos is extremely powerful, his current cultivation level is still low and he cannot activate its powerful power at all. The level of the blood evil Qingming poison is also high, which is not something he can do with his bloodline at this time. It is extremely unbelievable that a drop of his natal essence and blood can help Cui Yayan suppress the poison in his body for another 3 months. If he wants to eliminate such poison with just a drop of his natal essence and blood, unless his current cultivation level has reached the Yuan Dan realm, can stimulate part of the power in the bloodline of the Supreme Chaos. Chapter 70 Bloody Green Poison. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Chu Jianqiu put Cui Yayan on the bed, Chu Jianqiu rushed in like a gust of wind. When he saw this scene, he was startled. He rushed up in a hurry, squeezed Chu Jianqiu away, and screamed, "What's wrong, master?" In the main hall halfway up the mountain, she saw the sword aura on the top of the mountain, and she was worried. In this state, the master taught Chu Jianqiu sword skills, which would add to the injury. Although her master did not allow her to go to the main hall on the top of the mountain, she finally felt uneasy and ran up. Finally, she saw the scene she was worried about. Master's injury broke out and he fainted. Chu Jianqiu replied from the side. He only said that Cui Yayan's injury broke out, but concealed Cui Yayan's poison attack. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain the poison in Cui Yayan's body. Things that have been suppressed again. That's true of you. Master is like this, and you still want him to teach you swordsmanship. Chu Jianqiu glared at Chu Jianqiu and said. Chu Jianqiu couldn't help but smile bitterly. Cui Yayan wanted to teach him the swordsmanship. Could he stop her? He had already refused at the time, but Cui Yayan still insisted on it. What could he do? He couldn't beat Cui Yayan now, so how could he stop her? But Cui Yayan's serious injury was indeed caused by him, so Chu Jianqiu did not argue. Chu Jianqiu also knew that Chu Jianqiu was not to blame for this. No one could stop what Cui Yayan decided to do, but the anger she was holding in her heart had nowhere to go, except to vent it on Chu Jianqiu. You stay here and watch master, I'll call my dad over. Chu Jianqiu warned Chu Jianqiu, and disappeared in a flash. After a cup of tea, Chu Jianqiu appeared in the main hall again, followed by a man dressed as a middle-aged scholar and a beautiful woman with an elegant appearance. Chu Jianqiu had never met these two people, so he did not know that the middle-aged scribe was Chu Jianqiu, the master of the Xianxia sect, and that the elegant woman was also the dignified master of the seventh peak, Qi Miaoyan. It wasn't until Chu Jianqiu introduced him that Chu Jianqiu knew that the dignified master of Xianxia sect and the master of Seventh Peak were coming, and he quickly bowed and saluted. This time he was really surprised. It turned out that Chu Jianqiu was the daughter of the leader of the Xianxia sect. Chu Jianqiu waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need to be polite. Seventh junior sister, how are you? Chu Jianqiu asked solemnly after Qin Miaoyan diagnosed Cui Yayan's condition. Although he knew something about medicine, his attainments were far inferior to Qin Miaoyan's. Qin Miaoyan is a fourth-grade physician and a fourth-grade alchemist. In Xianxia sect, no one can match her in terms of medicine and alchemy. After making the diagnosis, Qin Miaoyan showed a somewhat puzzled look on her face, frowning lightly and said, "It stands to reason that the fourth senior sister's forced use of the Qing Lu Zhao Kong sword Ju just now will inevitably affect the injury and cause the poisonous injury to explode. But now it seems that the fourth sister, apart from the fact that she has consumed some of her true energy, there is no other abnormality. Her natural vitality seems to be stronger than before. This is really strange." Chu Jianqiu was relieved when he heard that Cui Yayan's injury did not worsen. However, if we don't get the antidote, given the current situation of fourth senior sister, she won't be able to survive for at most 3 months. Qin Miaoyan sighed slightly. This new blood evil poison developed by the blood evil sect is really too powerful. Well, unless we can refine Yuanyang evil elixir, facing the actions of the blood evil sect, we will not be able to. We can only temporarily close the mountain. Chu Jianqiu was shocked when he heard this. Uncle Seventh, what do you mean when you say that master can't last 3 months? Qin Miaoyan glanced at her and sighed slightly. Although she didn't say it directly, her expression said it all. Chu Jianqiu's face couldn't help but turn pale. Before, the master only said that if she couldn't get the antidote, her cultivation level would decline. It turned out that it was just to comfort her. The truth of the matter is much more serious. If the master cannot cure this bloody green poison, he will die directly. Dad, I also want to enter the Xianxia secret realm this time. Chu Jianqiu looked at Chu Jianqiu and said firmly. Nonsense, how can you, a sea transformation realm warrior, pass through that secret passage? Chu Jianqiu suddenly said with a serious look on his face. I can overcome the situation. Chu Jianqiu said stubbornly. After the pressure realm, you think easy. Do you think it is as simple as competing with others in this kind of pressure realm? That secret realm passage can only withstand the aura of a warrior below the transformation sea realm. As long as there is a trace of aura that exceeds that of a warrior in the true Qi realm through that passage, this secret passage will collapse immediately. If you want to pass through that passage, it's not as simple as suppressing your realm. Instead, you have to completely block the aura of your sea-forming realm. This is equivalent to directly abolishing your realm and letting you fall directly into the true energy. Realm, if you are in such a realm, how much effect can it have? Furthermore, the consequences of this kind of forbidden realm are extremely serious. If you are not careful, you will only be able to stay in the true Qi realm for the rest of your life. You will never mention this kind of thing again. Chu Jianqiu scolded sternly. Chu Jianqiu had never seen his father look so stern before, and his eyes were red with grievance, and tears kept rolling in his eyes. Are we just watching master like this and doing nothing? In order to refine the Xian blood beast this time, the Xianxia sect will definitely send a large number of disciples into the Xianxia secret realm to get the Xianxia Xian demon liquid. Once they obtain a large amount of Xianxia Xian demon liquid, this will be our Xianxia sect will never survive the catastrophe of the entire Daqian dynasty. So this time, all the inner disciples of the Xianxia sect's true Qi realm must enter the Xianxia secret realm to stop the actions of the blood evil sect. At that time, I will issue a task to ask everyone to pick heavenly things when they enter the Xianxia secret realm. Ji Xian Dragon Grass. This matter is not your alone. Chu Jianqiu said expressionlessly. Qin Miaoyan looked at Chu Jianqiu at this time, and couldn't help feeling a little cold. This time all the inner disciples of the Xinqi realm entered the Xianxia secret realm, and she didn't know how many of them could come out. The blood evil sect is so powerful that even the entire Daqian dynasty can barely compete with it. Now facing the blood evil sects advancing step by step, the other sects want to protect themselves wisely and do not want to fight with the blood evil sect. Only the remaining sects are left. Xianxian sect is struggling to support itself. The Xianxia secret realm is already extremely dangerous, and now it has to face the extremely dangerous blood evil sect. The inner disciples who entered the Xianxia secret realm this time basically had a narrow escape from death. The leader wants to sacrifice this entire generation of inner disciples to stop the blood evil sect's actions. Even if he can successfully destroy the blood evil sect's actions, Xianxian sect will lose so many inner disciples that it will definitely lose its vitality. The injury will not recover for at least 100 years, but if the actions of the blood evil sect cannot be stopped, the Xianxian sect will be destroyed. Although Zhuo Qiuan's behavior was a bit cold, Qin Miaoyan could also understand Zhuo Qiuan's helplessness.